And so we are about to get ready. The cars are almost ready on the grid. Stig in pole position in front of Prost, Mark, Savastan, and also we have Danny in P5. So we're about to get ready. Green flag on the back of the grid. And the lights are about to get on with 3, 4, and 5 lights. Lights out in Baku, and the 2016 Formula Europe is officially on the way now, with Stig getting into the first corner, and he goes wide. He goes wide, and he lost so many positions. So Prost is leading in front of Mark, and then we have Savastan in third, and look at the battle right in the middle of the group. Oh, what a poor start from Stig, who is really struggling now. The cars are into turn 3 and Stig right into the Red Bull of Danny 92. A huge impact. It seems like the McLaren have no brakes as he approached turn 3 and he's been disqualified. The poleman Stig has been disqualified from the race, and that is something I have really never expected. Banana Man is right in the back of his opponent on P11, and he touched the wall. A huge crash for Banana Man, who destroyed his Force India ride on the main straight. And look at how many debris are there, and the safety car is being deployed. So the safety car is now waiting for the drivers to arrive. So Prost is leading in front of Mark and Savastan. Arbos fighting very hard with Libero for P5. He's on soft tires. He goes on the inside. It's very dangerous in this part of the track, and yes, he got it. Yes, he got it. What an overtake from Arbos, but look behind, because the two Cebu drivers are also fighting against each other. And now Danny 92 trying to overtake Timid Fire. But Mark is faster than him, and he goes through both of them. Mark overtakes Danny and Banana Man in really a blink of an eye, and Danny 92 goes through. So the both Red Bull overtake the Force India of Timid Fire. And now Savastan Shalazakwa is very struggling, is really struggling now. Only made a mistake, and now, oh, look at this. Shalazakwa has completely destroyed his Mercedes at turn 9. And look at how many debris are there, and the virtual safety car is being deployed. Timid White tried to defend himself from the upcoming attack of Arbos that opened the DRS right now. Arbos with his Sauber goes in the inside at turn 1, and it seems like he is gonna be ahead of the Force India. And yes, he got it. He reached the 3rd place right now. But we take a look at Renegade, that is right in the back of Timid Fire. Let's see if he's going to be able to overtake the Force India drivers at the end of the main straight. Opening the DRS now, but the speed of the Force India is very good, and he's struggling to getting side by side at turn 1. Oh, yes, he got it. Yes, he got it. Renegade. Arbos right in the back of Mark. Let's see if he will be able to reach P2 on the main straights into turn 1. He got the inside, and yes, he got it. Arbos that gets the check red flag, and F1 Italian Prost is the winner here in Baku. F1 Italian Prost wins the European Grand Prix with Arbos in 2nd place and F1 Racing Mark in 3rd. This is the podium here, but I gotta tell you, I really can't wait for the next month when these drivers gonna meet again in Bahrain. What's gonna happen? We will find out.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are in Bahrain, ready for the second Grand Prix of this season. Into the last turn, it is very important to avoid the curb to get a perfect traction. In turn 1, we have to brake hard, keeping the car as stable as we can to get a good traction into turn 2 and 3. We are now arriving into turn 4. We have to brake at the 100-meter sign, hit the apex in 3rd gear and get a good traction into the second sector. Now we have to keep up the momentum, trying not to lose speed into this chicane. It is very important to avoid getting too aggressive on the curbs. Then we brake out again, 2nd gear to this right turn. We are now arriving into the most difficult corner of the track. We have to brake, avoiding the lock of the front tires, and then keep the car in the right race line to get a good traction into the second DRS zone. We have to brake hard again, hit the apex in 4th gear, and then avoid the curb in the outside. Now we are flat out into turn 13. We have to brake again, 4th gear, trying to get a good traction into the downhill leading to the last corner. At the 100-meter sign, we have to brake, 4th gear, touch the apex in the inside, avoiding the curbs at the outside to get a good traction, then we are flat out to the finish line.
Good evening everybody and welcome to the second round of this 2017 Formula Europe Championship on F1 2016. We have a whole load of top class drivers ready to tackle the Sakir International Circuit tonight, a track their real life counterparts took on less than a week ago and threw up a fairly exciting race there, so I'm sure tonight will be no different. We have plenty to look forward to. F1 Italian are currently leading the championship after an impressive showing last time out in Baku, and with a couple of different drivers representing them today, we'll be looking to extend that advantage. So qualifying around this track is always very, very close due to the nature of it. It's not particularly technically challenging, so we tend to get very, very close qualifying sessions, so we should see pretty much the same here tonight. And you can see Stig has just gone on pole with a 29.7 provisionally, which is an insane lap. That is ridiculous pace. I'm sure he'll be looking good to stay there for the rest of the session really. I can't see many people getting too close to that one. That is an impressive lap time from him. As we have Jamie 995 leaving the pits representing AOR tonight. We have two new drivers representing AOR, Jamie and Keane. Jamie, you came in at the end of season 12 as a reserve driver and managed to finish on the podium in Brazil in some mixed conditions, which was an impressive result considering how short a time he spent in the league. And then Keane, who finished 7th in the championship after losing 2 positions in the final race, which is pretty heartbreaking for him after spending much of the season in the top of the table. But unfortunately, I don't really know much about the rest of the drivers, so we'll just wait and see how they get on today. But that lap from Stig is incredibly impressive. 29.7, almost half a second in front of F1 Italian Fed, who is, again, 30.2 is a competitive lap time, but it's just 29.7 is on another level. I wonder how many guys are going to be able to get close to that come the end of the session, as we have F1 Simu Adeo in 3rd with a 30.3, and then Adilo's gang in 4th, and then Jamie in 5th currently on a 30.5. So, who else have we got? Have we got Stig still on a flying lap? No, Stig is not on a flying lap. And Fed's also on an out lap. So, is F1 Italian Fed as fast as his other F1 Italian counterparts, which are so famous for dominating time trial leaderboards and, well, just generally being insanely fast. I would assume he is. I'm sure he'll be looking to get close to Stig's provisional pole time, which is probably what everyone is going to be looking to doing, as we have Manuel Juve on intermediates, which is an interesting strategy. And then the rest of the top 10, we have Banana Man with a strange spelling of that. In the Force India, oh, there's a lot of oversteer out of turn 1. Who else have we got? F1 Simu Bino. That's not who I wanted to click on. F1 Simu Bino has just gone up into second place in the Renault. Still almost half a second off that pole time though. Nobody has managed to get close to Stig's pole time yet. And who else have we got going on here? Adeo is pulling over. Adilo is on an out lap. Who's on a flying lap? F1 Italian third. He is about to start a flying lap. Can he get close to this pole position time? Turn 1 is absolutely crucial. It's make or break stuff into turn 1. Is he going to get the braking zone right? Is he going to get the tricky traction zone right? Apparently he's locked up according to the spectator cams, which is, you never really know, but that looks very tidy as he double shifts up into 5th gear. No oversteer. That looked pretty much perfect from Fed in that Ferrari, which is a notoriously oversteery car online. He's looking to be dealing with that very nicely. A little bit of oversteer on the exit of turn 4.
Now we have a new pole because Fifth Higuain is now in pole with 129.6.
Wow, what a lap from Higuain. I'm not a fan of the name really, but still, what a lap.
He made an excellent T1. He gained 2/10 in the T1, and then he just managed the advantage.
Incredible first sector, that 28.2. I can't see many people getting too close to that, but we have almost the whole top 10 now on flying laps as we have Binu coming up to the line. It is 3rd place on a 30.0 for him. And then how is Fed's lap looking? It was a 0.4 in the first sector, a 0.8 in the middle. He's improving on his own lap, but I don't think it's going to be enough to challenge for pole as he's coming into the final corner now. Where is he going to brake? How's he going to manage it? How's he going to manage the traction and everything else? Into the final corner again, it's looking pretty nice. A little bit of oversteer up to the line. What is it going to be? 29.9, which is good enough for 3rd place. Who else is looking quick? We have Adilo's gang. I'm going to really struggle to pronounce that name throughout the race, I could tell that, but in the Mercedes, he is on a flying lap. What is his first sector? 28.5. So again, he's marginally up on his own time, but it's not quite the 28.2 which we saw from Higuain. That is an incredible first sector from him. Who else have we got on a lap? So Stig is on an out lap. So Stig is going for it right at the end of the session. He's almost going to be the last man to cross the line here in the McLaren. Coming around the final sector now, he's just about going to cross the line with enough time left. Who else have we got? We've got Jamie 995 coming to the end of, no, or is he just starting his lap? Yeah, he's about to be starting a lap as well. So Jamie is probably going to be the last man across the line. He's going to be the last one on track, I believe.
There is now Adio in the first lap, and he's doing well. He is now at the last corner.
Yep, nice in the braking zone, nice in the traction zone. Is it going to be good enough to challenge for the top 3 spots? It is. It's 3rd with the 29.7 from F1 Simu Adeo, which is sitting at 0.16 away from Higuain. It's very close between Stig and Adeo. It's only 0.03 of a second. That's incredible stuff.
The standings are in 1st place. We found Higuain. The 2nd is Stig. Then we have Adeo, Danny, Fed, F1 Simobino, Adilos Gang, Chan G4, Banana Man, Jamie, Ita Renegade, F1 Racing Mark, Simi Derfield 0, Manuel Juve, Ossibuch, and in 16th we have Big Quiz 83.
So here we are then on the formation lap in Bahrain. We have Higuain on pole in the Ferrari for F1 Italian, with Stig just behind in that McLaren Honda, with F1 Simu Adeo in third, with F1 Racing Danny in fourth, and then the rest of the grid forming up just behind them, as we have a little bit of handbags going on the formation up with a couple of cars back here. So the two F1 Simu cars in 7th and, what was it, 3rd, I believe. So fairly strong qualifying from the two Frenchmen. And who else have we got? Higuain on pole with a 29.6. That is quite an incredible lap time. I mean, I said a 29.7 might be unbeatable, and Higuain just goes and pops a 29.6 in there for good measure. That is quite an incredible lap. But here we go then. We are ready to go racing in Bahrain. Everyone is now lining up into their grid slots, and the race will be getting underway shortly, as we see a couple of cars spinning their rear tyres on the grid, which is a slightly strange sight on this game. But here we go then, revving up to 5 red lights for the second round of this 2017 Formula Europe Championship. We are ready to go racing in Bahrain. It's lights out and away we go. And the Red Bull, oh, there's been a big crash. There's a Red Bull backwards on the grid already. There's smoke everywhere. Red Bull has been stuck on the grid. F1 Racing Danny's been disqualified from the session, but Higuain still leads into turn 1. F1 Simu Adeo is trying to go around the outside of the McLaren as we have a virtual safety car. All manner of crashing went on the grid. What on earth happened there? A Red Bull was backwards before we even got going. That was quite... I've never seen anything quite like that before. That was...
He jump started and he hit the car in front of him, and he spun. And then trying to get back on the track, he was disqualified, I think, for going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it looked like a bit of a mess at the start, but in all of that, Higuain for F1 Italian maintained the lead of the race, with F1 Simu Adeo getting himself up into second place ahead of the McLaren of Stig. He managed a 29.6 in qualifying, which, as I say, is a very impressive lap time. And then the other F1 Italian car of Fed in fourth. Then we have F1 Racing Mark in 5th, whose teammate got disqualified and was the root of all the trouble at turn 1. But now we have Fed trying to go up the inside of the McLarens. There's all kinds of cars coming into turn 4 together. Fed looks like he's lost out in all that. He's still going side by side with the McLaren. And I think Adeo has still managed to maintain P2, with F1 Racing Mark getting up into 3rd place. Stig has dropped from 3rd to 4th, and then Fed is still at the back of this train. But look at the gap Higuain has managed to pull. That is huge at the front already. I mean, that is a good couple of seconds to Adeo just behind. I mean, the gap is 2.5 seconds already. So is Higuain potentially already going to streak away with the lead of this race? But Adeo is now defending from F1 Racing Mark, coming into turn 1 side by side. The Red Bull versus the Renault. The Red Bull on the inside. The camera angle would be nice if it could change. And he has managed to get the position move done up into second place for F1 Racing Mark. And I think now, with Higuain out of the slipstream of all of these guys, it's going to be a bit of a mess fighting for second place behind, as we have a McLaren looking potentially up the inside of one of the Renaults. But these guys are all in a massive slipstream chain, just kind of battling with each other, and surely that is just going to allow Higuain to pull away. He's got clear air, nothing to worry about. The only thing that might catch him out of this stage now is strategy or a safety car. I don't think anyone is going to stop him unless something else happens, as this train is getting ever larger now. I think everyone apart from that Red Bull we saw spinning at the start, pretty much off the line, has managed to get through that cleanly. So let's just have a look through the rest of the field, see if anything's going on. The rest of that looks fine, I think. No other major incidents apart from that almost pile up before we even got to turn 1. But look at this train. This is an impressive amount of cars all following each other in a line, and as of yet nobody overtaking. But the Red Bull of F1 Racing Mark is at the head of this train, followed by F1 Simu Adeo, and then Stig just behind them, and then F1 Italian Fed, and then Adilo's gang, and then F1 Simu Bino. I don't wonder if we're going to see any teamwork from the two Renaults, the two F1 Simu cars. It would make sense for the two teammates to work together, but I don't know. I wonder if we'll see any team orders coming into play later in the race. But we have Adeo. Is he going to look up the inside of Mark? He's not. He's trying to defend from the McLaren behind, and I think he's managed to do that just about, as Stig nearly gets caught out a little bit on the exit. And I think everyone has managed to get through there cleanly as we now have F1 Italian Fed. Is he going to look down the inside of the McLaren? No, he's not. He's just leaving his nose in there for good measure, letting the McLaren driver know that he is there. So let's run you through the order then as it stands. We have F1, not F1, if I can even get some words out, we have Fit Higuain 9 leading the race by about 3.5 seconds from F1 Racing Mark in second place, with F1 Simo Adeo in third, Stig in fourth, and F1 Italian Fed in fifth, with Adilo's gang in sixth, F1 Simo Bino in seventh, and Manuel Juve up into eighth place. Again, we haven't really seen any moves coming into turn 4 as of yet, which is a bit of a surprise considering how close the field is. Or expect a couple of slipstream passes into turn 4, considering that is really a prime overtaking opportunity. And now that we have DRS enabled, I'm sure there'll be plenty more overtakes, particularly into turn 1. I mean, it could get quite interesting with so many cars coming into turn 1 with so much speed with the slipstream and the DRS, but it looks like Adeo's fallen back slightly from Mark, and it's probably going to have to look backwards more than ahead as he's coming down this straight. I can't see anything from that camera angle, so I'll have to switch to that one. He has got the DRS though, which I think will be enough to help him defend from Stig behind him, but he's still not close enough to make a move on F1 Racing Mark. He's going slightly defensive, but there's a big dive from Stig and the McLaren. There's contact. The Renault and the McLaren are both off. They're going to lose positions to the F1 Italian car, and now we have Adilo's gang looking at going past the Renault as well into turn 4. He's going to have the slipstream. Is he going to have a good enough run? The Renault also looking at trying to get past the McLaren, and then the Mercedes thinks better of it, but that was a very, very aggressive dive from Stig in that McLaren, causing quite a lot of contact with the F1 Simu car, and now we have a 1-3 for F1 Italian, with F1 Italian Fed running in third place, being promoted 2 positions due to that crash which we just saw at turn 1. That was quite an optimistic move from Stig in the McLaren, and F1 Racing Mark is still managing to stay with Higuain. The gap has only increased by 1/10 of a second, so it doesn't seem to be that Higuain has a massive pace advantage. He was just able to utilise the virtual safety car to make sure he got through the opening lap safely, and then was able to avoid all the battling that went on behind them. And as I said, like, the gap has opened up a little bit more. And Stig down to P4, Adeo down to P5, Adilo's gang still running in P6. And there is Jamie Timifideur and Manuel Juve are all forming at the back of this train, and it could get very, very interesting coming into turn 1. This Renault of F1 Simu Bino could be a bit of a sitting duck here. Is he going to have DRS from the car in front? Yes, he will. Is it going to be enough to help defend from that enormous train behind him? That is a lot of cars there. We have Manuel Juve pulling to the inside to try and defend from Jamie 995 in the Sauber, trying to go around the outside at turn 1. Can he be able to make that stick? Still on the inside for turn 2. They're still going side by side up the hill through turn 3 into turn 4. Jamie's going to have to settle back into the slipstream and possibly have a look around the outside at turn 4. No, Manuel Juve has managed to maintain that position, and these guys are, due to that, a little bit of a skirmish coming into turn 4, are falling away from the guys in front a little bit. So we have still, these cars are following each other very nicely, unlike we've seen in real life. These cars, particularly with the DRS and the slipstream, are able to follow each other very nicely. So what action have we got going on here? We still have the gap between Fed and Mark hasn't really closed much at all. Stig has pulled away slightly from Adeo.
Crash, Manuel Juve and Bino.
Oh, big problem. So, there's all kinds of crash. I've managed to miss all of that, as now we have a lot of cars going very, very slowly. Who is that? Is that Jamie trying to go down the inside? No, that's Kian. Is that Kian? I think that's Kian. Yeah, it's Kian down the inside into turn 4. He's up into 12th place. Something must have happened to him at the start. We have... I confess, I completely missed that. I'm not entirely sure what went on there, as we now have Renegade in P9. Timofida is all over the back of Jamie coming into turn 1. Is he going to be able to make a move down this very long pit straight? He's going to have the slipstream. Jamie, I believe, will have DRS. No, he doesn't have DRS from the car in front. This is going to be hard for Jamie to defend from the Force India behind him. What is he going to be able to do as we come into turn 1? And it looks like it was a fairly simple pass in the end for the Force India driver. There was nothing really that Jamie could have done there because of the sheer straight line speed difference, as I managed to miss that whole crash. I'm not entirely sure who was involved in that one, but there seemed to be a couple of cars going very, very slowly, and something major must have happened, as the gap between F1 Racing Mark and Higuain at the front is almost up to 5 seconds now. So,
and now Ferdi is catching Mark.
There is a pit stop for Manuel Juve and Bino.
So Bino and Manuel Juve have pulled into the pits after that incident, which I'm not entirely sure how many other drivers that involved, but they've clearly picked up some significant damage and had to box, because, well, you can't really drive with front wing damage on this game. It just causes you to bleed too much lap time, really, for it to be manageable. I mean, even the slightest bit of front wing damage can cause major issues, as we now have Fed all over the back of Mark. He's closed quite a considerable gap there, so Mark clearly doesn't quite have the pace of the F1 Italian drivers at this stage of the Grand Prix, and Fed will surely be looking for a move into turn 1. He's so close. This is going to be surely fairly easy for him, as Mark is not going to have DRS or anything to be able to defend with. It is just going to be Ferrari with DRS and slipstream versus the Red Bull, and I think this is going to be a very simple pass for the F1 Italian driver down into turn 1. Is he going to be passed before we even get to the braking zone? He's not. Mark is going to try and hang around the outside, but he cannot be quite late enough on the brakes. He's going to be able to get a cutback line through turns 2 and 3. Oh, it's a big slide. Big slide on the exit for both drivers there. I think more so for Mark. He was almost 90 degrees coming out of that out of that corner, which could have ended fairly badly for him. And that little bit of battling has meant that they've dropped over 5 seconds behind the leader, but it is now an F1 Italian 1-2 with Higuain leading the race from Fed in second place. So it's looking very good for the championship leaders at this stage of the race, although we still have 50 laps ahead of us, so there's plenty that could possibly go on. And we've seen already that crashes can happen, that we have the possibility of a safety car at some point. As just trying to find something that's going on. We have Kian all over the back of this Force India. I mean, something must have happened to Kian at the start, because he's now quite a way down the field, and Adeo after that minor contact, well, I say minor contact, it was fairly sizable contact with Stig at turn 1 a couple of laps ago, and now running in 5th and 4th place respectively, after being, I believe, 2nd and 3rd at one point. But now we have Mark, who's already lost quite a lot of time to F1 Italian Fed in front of him. I mean, that gap has increased quite considerably, considering they were side by side only a lap ago. That gap is now almost up to a second, as we have the first pit stop from Mark, the first of the leaders to make a pit stop for a fresh set of tyres, going for an undercut. And that could be big, because I think he's realised that Fed has more pace than him at this stage of the race with the undercut. Is he going to be able to make it work and gain that position back on strategy? Well, it'll be interesting to see how the Ferrari's going to deal with this, because, well, you'd imagine that Higuain doesn't have to respond, but Fed probably does, and if they do decide to stack, they'll lose an awful lot of time. So I wonder how the F1 Italian boys are going to work out their strategy for this one. It's a little bit of a dilemma for them to work out, as that's promoted Stig up into P3 and Adeo up into P4. Are we going to see a reaction from any of the top guys? It's now going to be Mark on fresh tyres versus the rest of these guys, and Mark crucially has clear air on that set of soft tyres that he's put on. I'm not entirely sure what strategies we're going to be seeing from people today.
Fed made a big mistake. He lost 2 or 3 seconds, and now Stig is in a gearbox.
Let's go on board with Stig then. Fed has made that's a big mistake from Fed. He's dropped a long way back. I mean, that gap to Stig was fairly sizable, and now Stig is all over the back of the Ferrari. Is it essentially going to be a race to the pit lane though for these guys? What strategies are they going to be employing? Are we going to be seeing split strategies from the Ferraris? Let's go on board with Higuain. Is he going to pit? It would be a bold move for the leader to pit so early, and Higuain stays out. He had a big gap to the guys behind him, so his hand hasn't been forced just yet at this stage, and I think Fed is going to pit. Fed boxes this lap, and Stig has gone on. He looked like he was following him into the pits there, but F1 Italian Fed has reacted to F1 Racing Mark, and he's always got a stop-go penalty. That's going to hurt him a lot, and surely that means Mark is going to come out ahead of him. I mean, where is Mark? And Mark is making a move on the McLaren of, who is that? The McLaren of Big Chris, and that is a fairly simple move for the Red Bull, and he's going to come out miles ahead of the Ferrari. Yeah, there's a big gap between the two of them. I mean, Mark is already almost on the run up to turn 4, and Fed's almost only just coming into turn 1, so he's lost a lot of time with that mistake and that stop-go penalty. I'm not entirely sure what the penalty was for, but it's cost him big time, and We have a virtual safety car. Oh, this could be very big. Is it going to last until we get back to the pits? Because this could be a blessing in disguise for Higuain. If he pits now, he's going to gain a huge amount of time. But is the virtual safety car going to last long enough for him to utilise the time gain? Well, we'll wait and see, because these guys, Mark and Fed, by pitting early, could have lost a lot of time here. This virtual safety car has not been at a good time for them at all. They can't utilise their tyres when they're at their freshest, when they're at the fastest. This could not work out very well at all for them.
By the way, Fed went wide at the beginning of the second sector, and to avoid the crash, he cutted a turn and he got the stop and go.
Right, so that is where Fed picked up his stop go, and unfortunately for Higuain, the virtual safety car ended just before he was able to come into the pit, so that didn't have an effect on anybody's pit strategies, as I think we're going to see Adeo come into the pits now. The first of the Renault drivers is into the pit lane on lap 9. What tyres is he going to go on to? I believe Fed and Mark have both went on to soft.
Adidas gang is overtaking Jamie. They're now side by side, but Jamie, the time did well, and he's still ahead in third place.
Jamie's been promoted up into third now after a number of guys in front have made their pit stops. It's going to be interesting to see what strategies these guys are on, because we're seeing some pretty variable pit laps. I mean, Mark pitted 3 laps ago, I believe, and most of these guys who started on the super soft tyres have stayed out quite a long time, so it's going to be interesting to see whether we actually see any strategic variation, or they'll go for still the same strategy. Bahrain is a track that absolutely destroys the rear tyres. So many traction zones to eat into those rear tyres, particularly the super softs. They do not last long at all around here, but these guys are pushing them to around lap 10. So are we going to see anyone pitting this lap? Adilo's going has DRS on Jamie. He appears to have fallen back a little bit since they were side by side out of turn 2. As we now have Renegade, who qualified on the intermediate tyres, all over the back of Timothy 0. As we're coming through turn, not entirely sure what number that is, so I'll just leave that one out.
Higuain is now pitting.
So from the lead of the race for F1 Italian, Higuain, the first Ferrari on the road, is into the pits a number of laps after his teammate. Is it going to be a good stop from Ferrari? Straps on a fresh set of soft tyres. Where is he going to come out in relation to the rest of the field? If he has traffic, that could harm him badly. I think he's going to come out just behind that Toro Rosso there of Renegade, and he's going to come out well behind, as Marks is the fastest lap of the race, and I think Kian is going to come up. Kian is going to be just behind the F1 Italian of Higuain, and Higuain crucially has a lot of clear air to push. That worked out very nicely for him. That could have been pretty desperately bad if he'd come up behind Kian and the Force India behind him, but it has in the end worked out pretty well for Higuain. And we have Renegade, who started on the soft tyres after qualifying on intermediates, up into third, and Jamie has been promoted up into second place, which is, we've seen a very impressive drive from him so far. He's now only 5 seconds behind the leader Stig, although I mean, I would imagine these guys are going to be pitting this lap probably, because well, I can't see the point in pushing these super softs much longer unless they're going to try to do potentially one less stop in this race. If they can do 11 laps on super softs, I imagine a 2-stop would be possible probably.
Or they're trying to jump a pit stop, or maybe they want to use softer tires later in the race.
Yeah, that is a good shout. As I said, I'm not entirely sure what the strategy options are open to these drivers, but I imagine most will be on either a 2 or a 3 stop. I imagine that's what the strategies would be, as Stig pulls into the pits and Jamie stays out another lap.
Yeah, but Jamie is on harder tires because he has the yellow tires.
Wait, what? He's on super softs on my screen. Anyway, we'll gloss over that.
I see him with soft tires.
Wonderful. So whatever tyres Jamie's
soft
on,
tires.
Jamie is on soft tyres apparently, despite him being on super softs on my screen. Ignore everything I've said about Jamie going on multiple laps, but he is looking very strong in this race now. He has a lot of clear air to push into. It is slightly off-putting that he's not actually on the tyres that he's on my screen, but we'll gloss over that. But he's on the soft tyres, and Jamie is in the lead of the race. He's got another guy who's on the soft tyres just behind him, Renegade, and the gap between them is fairly sizable now as Higuain is closing in on these guys. We don't know whether these guys are going to be eliminating a stop, so we don't know really whether they'll actually be racing for track position, as Mark is... How far ahead of Fed is Mark? He's quite a long way. That's a good few seconds there between Mark and Fed, and considering we saw them so close to each other earlier on in the Grand Prix. And we have Ostri Bush. I don't know whether he's has he pitted yet? Let's have a look. No, he hasn't pitted yet. I don't know whether he's actually on Super Soft, because he is on my screen, but whether he actually is on this...
I see him on Super Soft too.
Yeah,
there we
super
go.
soft. Might be stuff for him.
The game can actually get something right, as we have... Oh, there's a lot going side by side here. We have a Delos gang going side by side with Big Chris, and he's managed to get that move done. This scrap over 8th place, I believe, between these 4 cars. And a Delos gang, having pitted, is looking to make up a number of positions very quickly, it seems. And Adeo is in some clear air now. He has Stig just ahead of him. We saw them have that crash into turn 1 earlier. So I wonder if we'll see any more spicy wheel-to-wheel action between the two of them. As who else have we got? Have we got any side-by-side action throughout the field? I believe everyone is still maintaining position. We have Keane running around in 12th. I believe he's made his pit stop now onto a set of soft tyres. He's a little way behind the points. And who else have we got? We've got Tim F1 following F1 Simi.
On Ostibuch.
Oh yeah,
for the 5th position.
Ostibuch, we believe, hasn't pitted yet. He's on some very old super soft tyres. This should be easy work for Fed. He's run very wide into turn 11, I think that is. I think that's turn 11. It's a very tricky corner. It's very easy to lock the inside front or even lock the rears and slide on the exit. But the Ferrari up the inside into turn 11, and that's fairly easily done. I don't think the Mercedes driver has anything to offer on those 13-lap old super softs. It looks like they have really passed their best. As we still have Jamie leading by a considerable margin from the guys behind, and Higuain is, as we would expect, closing in on Renegade just in front of him. But I wonder if these guys are going to be trying to cut out a stop, because in a 50% race at least, I know that a one stop is possible, potentially if you go medium soft.
It is possible to do only one stop, but you have to be very careful with the tires. You can block, and you have to be careful every time you accelerate.
Well, I know Jamie to be a driver who's normally very good on his tyres, so that's something we could potentially be seeing from the Sauber driver representing AOR, and possibly something we could be seeing from Renegade as well. I can't entirely remember which league he's representing, but I think that would be
Italian Bois.
There we go. I think that would be a viable strategy for most of these guys. It's kind of hard to tell whether people are actually saving their tyres, because from the spectator cam it's very difficult to see whether they're actually accurate or not, as we have someone retiring from the session. Big Chris, I believe that was. Is that going to be a safety car potentially, or a virtual safety car? This could really play into the hands of Jamie if we do have a virtual safety car or a safety car now. With him in the lead of the race, this could work a treat for the Sauber driver, and unfortunately for him, I don't think we are going to see any form of safety car.
We already have green flags.
So, is there any action going on through the field? We have the gap between Fed and Mark is quite sizable. I mean, Fed has really struggled since he got that 5-second stop-go penalty, so he's going to struggle to make that time back up.
You also have to change the front wing, because he lost a lot of time.
Yes, that would also make sense. And we now have Adeo on the back of Stig. They have a bit of history from earlier on in the race. Stig going very defensive already into turn 1. Adeo very late on the brakes. Can he make a move from that far back? That would be audacious stuff from the F1 Simu driver up into turn 4. He is going to have the slipstream. Obviously no DRS in this section of the track. Is it going to be enough? The McLaren going defensive. Simu trying to go around the outside at turn 4. It's not going to work out for Adeo. He's got a cutback though. What a line that is. He's got a worldy exit. Going to go side by side with the McLaren driver through the sweeping corners of turns 5 and 6. And Stig has just about managed to maintain that position as into the turn 8 hairpin. Adeo trying to go around the outside. Stig on the mediums, it should be noted. He is going to be slower at this stage, but what a battle between those two. They're showing they can do it cleanly despite that crash we saw earlier on. And now into turn 11 with the DRS, with the slipstream. Is it going to be enough for Adeo to make a move? Chris going defensive, not Chris, what am I on about? Stig going defensive again, but this time Adeo is not quite close enough to make that move.
And we have Higuain trying to overtake Renegade for the second position.
So the net leader of the race, Higuain, can he dispose of Renegade quickly? With the DRS, with the slipstream, you would imagine it would be fairly easy for the Ferrari driver representing F1 Italian, and breezing past into turn 1. He's able to take the racing line into turn 1 before we even get into the braking zone. So easy as you like for Higuain. And Martin Locklear as is fed, and Stig is still going to try and defend from the Renault and the Force India behind him. It's almost 3 wide. The Force India is darting around all over the place. We have Adeo down the inside. He couldn't quite make that one stick, as we have Stig again still defending in 6th place on these medium tyres. He's going to be slower at this stage, as I mentioned, with the 2 guys behind on the soft. But unfortunately for F1 Simo Adeo, he cannot quite find a way past at this stage to utilise that extra grip from the soft tyres. What else have we got going on? Renegade has dropped back considerably from Higuain, who is closing in on Jamie rapidly. I wonder if we're going to see Jamie try and defend at all. I mean, I don't know whether it'd be worth defending. He might just accept that he isn't going to beat Higuain in this race, and it might make sense for him just to cut his losses, not lose the time battling, and potentially try and stick with the Ferrari in the slipstream for a while and try and gain time that way.
If he is on the one-stop strategy, you have to slow down Higuain as much as you can, because they both have one stop to go, I think.
Yep. We're saying that as Renegade is into the pits for his first stop on that set of soft tyres. So Jamie, the only other man who started on a set of soft tyres, and they are now showing as soft tyres on my screen. After 17 laps, he is still going on that same set, and Higuain is closing very quickly on him at this stage, as you would expect, considering Higuain has massively fresher tyres. They're about 10 laps fresher than what Jamie has. So Jamie is still in the lead of this Grand Prix for AOR, and it's now the 2 F1 Italian boys in 2nd and 4th, split by the Red Bull driver of F1 Racing Mark, whose teammate we saw have that dramatic exit on lap 1 before we even got to turn 1. That was something quite spectacular. But now we have Higuain drifting it out of turn 10. He is now within DRS range of Jamie 995, and if we sense about this one, it will just be a simple down the inside pass into turn 1. We have a virtual safety car, and again, oh, this could be massive for Jamie. If he pits now, if it lasts long enough for him to pit now, he is going to be in the big time by gaining a lot of time here. This could work out perfectly for the Sauber driver if he does pit now.
He will come out, I think, in 4th position, yeah, or 5th.
Just like we saw for RBOS in Baku for AOR as well. It works out very well for him pitting under, I believe it was a virtual safety car. But Jamie stays out. Jamie is staying out. That is a big call. Oh, is it the right one though? He would have gained a lot of time by pitting then. It looks like he really is. Oh, Higuain has dived it down the inside. What? That seemed to be before, yeah, and he's led him back through. He seems to be caught out by how early Jamie broke into turn 1. It has meant that the Sauber has gained a lot of time on the exit there. As what have we got here? We have Adeo pitting for F1 Simu, and Renegade is now into P8 after we saw him box earlier on. And Stig going side by side with, who is that? That is Timothy Feder, I think, in that Force India. and Stig having to go defensive into turn 4. The Force India is going very aggressively to the outside of the track, but Stig appears to be defending very well. We've seen him be very aggressive through the whole of this race, really, and again he's showing that, but still being clean after that one incident we saw him have earlier on into turn 1. He's been very, very clean since then, as we now have Higuain versus Jamie. We believe they both have one more stop to make before the end of the Grand Prix, so they are racing for net position, we believe.
And Adele pitted, and he is now on medium tires. I think he made contact because he already did one stop. So.
And now with Higuain going down the inside into the final corner on Jamie, but he decides to back out of that one. Very sensible, just waiting for the DRS. Are we going to see any opposition from Jamie? It looks like the Ferrari is just too close, I think. I don't think there's going to be anything Jamie can do here. He stays to the outside, and Higuain looks like he's just going to breeze past into the lead of the race. And sensibly from Jamie, there is no real fight back there. And Higuain retakes the lead of the race, which we saw him have so comprehensively early on. After managing to avoid the troubles on lap 1, he has pretty much just driven away from the rest of the field. He hasn't had to make many, if any, overtakes apart from that one that we've just seen on your screens there. So we have Mark still in 3rd place, who's not very far behind these guys actually. I mean, he can see them off in the horizon, so we could be looking at net 2nd place for Mark. I'm not entirely sure here. And Stig running on quite a long way back from the top 3 actually, as we have Fed's still quite a long way from Mark, and then we have quite a big gap between Fed and Stig. And then there's this battle for P5 with Stig, Tim Feder. I think I've bottled his name every time I've said it. With Renegade in 7th, Adilo's gang in 8th, and Kian is into the points now on that set of softs. So we have both AOR cars running in the points. I believe F1 Italian are the only other team to have both cars running in the points. So it's looking good for the F1 Italians to extend their championship lead. And you can see the gap that Higuain's already pulled to Jamie. He has nothing left to fight with on those tyres. Are we going to see him pit anytime soon? No, he stays out another lap. 20 laps on one set of soft tyres. You would imagine that's enough for him to do one stop. I mean, he's committed to this strategy now. Surely he has to go to the end making only one stop. Well, you would imagine that's what he's going to do.
To lap 25. I think maybe 22, 23. So I think he is going for the one stop.
Yeah, it would make sense at this point. He's already committed by staying out this long. I mean, we saw how early Renegade fitted. That was lap 17 or 18, and Jamie stayed out another 2 or 3 laps, so he would have lost a huge amount of time to that Toro Rosso. So he has to stay out now. He has to go for those mediums. He decided not to pit under the virtual safety car, which is a big call. Whether it will work out for him in the end, we'll have to wait and see. We still have 37 laps of racing to go in round 2 of this Formula Europe Championship, and it looks like Higuain is just going to be streaking away with this victory. Nobody can get close to him. His teammates seem to have good pace in the opening stint, but unfortunately for him was hampered by that stop-go penalty and also getting involved in some incidents on the opening lap. And Stig, it appears, has got some very good pace on this set of medium tyres. He's able to keep that Force India and the Toro Rosso behind him on what appear to be much quicker tyres. So we still have the Ferrari out in front leading this race from Jamie in 2nd place. Let's take a look. So from the back of the top 10 then we have Manuel Juve running around in 10th place with Kian running in 9th. Adilo's gang in 8th with Renegade in 7th, trying to make a move on Tim Feder in the Force India. Is he going to be sensible and wait for the start-finish straight, or is he going to go for a lunge into the final corner? He is. That's very late on the brakes, locks up both front tyres. That is not the most sensible move I've ever seen, as I believe that is the McLaren coming into the pits, or is he just going very defensive? He is. He's going very defensive into turn 1, and Renegade looking to make a move on the Force India into turn 1, pulling to the inside, down the inside into turn 1, late on the brakes, very late on the brakes actually, but he's managed to get it stopped just about. The Force India is going to have a much better line, but I think it's enough for Renegade to get that move done, and the Force India driver can't get close enough to make a move into turn 4 as he was very close on the brakes there, almost losing his front wing. And again, this battling is just allowing Stig to drive away, and that's also allowing Fed to just drive away from all of them behind. He's now 12 seconds behind his teammate in the lead of the race, and a significant margin behind Mark, who is rapidly closing on the Sauber of Jamie just in front of him. He's managed to close the gap to the leader quite considerably, actually, considering that Mark was quite a way back in the opening stint, and he's now well within 5 seconds of Higuain in the lead of this race. He's got to try and not lose any time getting past Jamie here. He's got to maximise every opportunity he gets. He's got to use the DRS well, not get held up in the corners as much as possible, and try and just push like mad and catch the leader. I can't see it happening really, because Higuain, I think, has been the quickest on track in qualifying and the race, but I guess you never know. Again, with the safety car or anything like that happening, it's too early to rule out anything like that happening at this stage of the race. There's still plenty of racing ahead of us.
Renegade is now trying to overtake Stig.
He has, after clearing that Force India, he's now setting his sights on the McLaren of Stig in front of him. He's got the DRS, he's closing into turn 1, but he'll have to wait for either the next lap or another overtaking opportunity during this lap. He's on the super softs compared to Stig's mediums, so also we see a Force India almost going into the barrier behind him. As let's find out what is going on outside the top 10. We have both F1 Simu cars in the running outside the points. It's not been a good afternoon, or a good evening should I say, for them so far. Running in 13th for Bino and 12th for Adeo. That's not what they wanted to see at all, as Renegade is all over the back of this McLaren Honda now. The mediums look like they're just not giving him any grip at this stage, and Renegade surely is going to be able to get past very, very quickly. He seems to be much faster at this stage of the race with the DRS. We haven't seen any, many, if any, overtakes into turn 11 so far. Are we going to see the first? No, Renegade decides to stick behind quite sensibly, and, well, are we going to see him go for a move into the final corner like we saw him do on the previous lap, which was not the most sensible thing I've ever seen, or are we going to see him wait until oh, that's very wide from Stig. He gets very slidey on the exit, and this time I think it's sensible for Renegade to go down the inside into the final corner. They're side by side coming into the final corner. Renegade down the inside is so late on the brakes, and I think Stig is going to have a cutback line, but it's not enough. He just has nothing to fight with on that set of mediums. It's just not enough for him to be able to compete with that Toro Rosso on the super soft, and due to Renegade being behind at the detection point, he is able to use the DRS to his advantage and drive away into turn 1. So he's managed to clear Stig after a little bit of battling. That will have cost him a significant amount of time, and Fed in front of him is way down the road. The gap between those two is like 13 seconds, so that's a big old gap between the two of them. I can't see that closing anytime soon. As we now have Mark on the back of Jamie, he is going to be within DRS range into turn 11. But again, I think it's going to be more about setting himself up into turn 1, as we've seen so many times already in this race. We're not even at the halfway point yet, as F1 Racing Mark, I mentioned before, his teammate blew up before we basically even got underway with that jump start. He's got to carry the flag for F1 Racing and try and get himself up into second place here. We think all of these drivers have one more stop left to make in this Grand Prix, so we should see everyone fighting for track position, and the gap between Mark and the leader Higuain has been slowly extending over the course of this stint. So we do believe that Higuain has had the quicker pace of everyone, and Jamie is now into the pits on lap 23. What tyres is he going to put on? You'd imagine it'd be a set of mediums that would take him to the end of the race, and what is it as he comes into the pits? It's soft. That's interesting.
Yeah, maybe we want to do another stop and put a super soft set of tires.
Yeah, he'll be going for super softs at the end, you'd imagine. But then that does beg the question, why did he not pit under the virtual safety car? Surely that would have been almost ideal timing for him. I mean, he would have probably had to run the mediums, but
he don't want to use the medium tires, and he preferred to go ahead with the planned strategy.
Yep, I mean, fair enough. It's clearly working out for him. He's going to be very quick at this stage on that set of softs. Closing up on Adilo's going very quickly already, so he has left himself with a lot of ground to make up. I mean, he left that very late to make 2 stops as we see Stig going very deep into turn 10. And what have we got? We've got Fed in clear air, Mark in clear air now. The gap between Mark and Higuain is now up to 6 seconds. Then Fed is 13 seconds behind the leader and about almost 10 seconds probably behind, actually a bit less than that, around 7 seconds behind Mark in front of him. And then Renegade is well back behind them in 4th place. So the top 4 very spaced out, top 5 really very spaced out. And then 6th place again, so the top 6 very spaced out. Adilo's gang is now under all kinds of pressure from Jamie995. I think he's going to be providing us with most entertainment for the rest of this race. He's going to be faster than pretty much everyone else on these fresh tyres, on this very aggressive strategy, you must say. And he's got to make quick work of this Mercedes coming into turn 1. He's going to have the DRS, he's going to have the slipstream. Is it going to be enough for Jamie to breeze past this Mercedes? Yes, it is, and Jamie995 moves up into 7th place for AOR. Is the Mercedes going to be able to put up any opposition? Not really, as Jamie gets the car stopped nicely out of turn 1. He's up into 7th place, 30 seconds behind the leader. I'm not sure how much time you lose. Actually, I mean, we imagine Higuain's only got 1 more stop to make before the end of the race, but he could come out in this quite heavy traffic here, really. So he might be wanting to, I don't know, possibly pit fairly soon, so he doesn't come out in this gaggle of cars between 9th and 6th. Otherwise, that could be fairly detrimental to his race. So obviously Jamie's going to be having to make 1 more stop before the end of the race, as we see that Force India getting all out of shape through turn 10. Jamie's not going to have the DRS, but he's going to be, you'd imagine, moving up into P6 very shortly, as he's making the most of these soft tyres, making the most of the extra grip that he has. Now the rest of these drivers at this stage, and this Force India looks like he's not going to be able to put up much opposition. You can see the gap to Adilo's gang and that Mercedes behind has already opened up quite considerably, as we see Timmy Defir, that's how you pronounce his name, as I've actually read it right for the first time. Again, we'll just be seeing Jamie wait for turn 1, as we've seen for most drivers. There we go, lifting and coasting into the braking zone. Taking the final corner nicely. The Force India getting a little bit of oversteer on the exit, and he also comes into the pit. So Jamie moves up into P6, with Stig still out on that set of mediums, and the gap between Jamie and Stig is 9 seconds roughly. So it's going to be tough for Jamie to get into the top 5, but it's potentially very doable if he gets his strategy right, if he can push in the clear air, if you can get his pace up to where it should be on these soft tyres. He should be possibly on the back of Stig before long, because you've seen Stig on that set of mediums for an awful long time. And Renegade still rolling around on the set of super softs, which we've seen him take 9 laps now, I believe. So quite a lot from the super softs. And who else have we got? We've got Mark, 7 seconds now behind the leader, so he really doesn't have the pace of the F1 Italian, who's streaking away with this victory, and nobody has been able to come close to him today. Although, as I said, we've still got the potential for anything to happen really, but the field is very, very spaced out now, so the likelihood of a safety car has decreased drastically, although he will be making 1 more stop before the end of the race, so you never know what might happen, as Jamie is definitely closing in on that McLaren. He's close to about a second on this lap actually.
By the way, as for F1 Simobino, I am now seeing he got a drive-through because he exceeded with the speed under the virtual safety car.
Oh, that's a harsh penalty to pay for that one, and Bino, that explains why Bino has dropped so far down the order after running, I think, in 7th place at the start. After the mess into turn 1, he managed to end up in P7, and unfortunately for him, that drive-through has really cost him, as we now have the other F1 Simu car of Adeo up into the points, which we saw him running in a podium position earlier on, but it just hasn't worked out for him today. He made another pit stop because he was on a set of softs, and now he's on a set of mediums, which I don't know whether he'll be taken to the end or not, but it means...
And by the way, as for the top drivers, nobody has penalties.
Yeah, Bahrain, a track where you don't really expect many drivers to be picking up penalties, as someone has pitted, because Jamie is now up into P5. I'm not sure who that was.
Fed.
So Fed, the Ferrari, which we saw,
now,
we saw him pitting so early on. He's now pitted again for a set of soft tyres, which 30 laps? Is he really going to the end on those?
I don't
do we think?
No. I think he is going to do another stop.
Yeah, so very aggressive, lots of stops from Fed, and he's going to be able to push essentially non-stop until the end of this race.
Maybe
So
he saw that he was not going to catch Mark, and he tried to differentiate to switch the strategy.
Yeah. So I think he realised that F1 Racing Mark, after the trials and tribulations of tonight's Grand Prix, was going to be well ahead of him. As we see this Mercedes pulling into the pits, I can't quite see who that is. Was that a Delo's gang? It is indeed.
Mark has pitted.
So Mark has responded actually to.
Top tires.
So he's gone for exactly the same strategy as we saw from Fed. And where is Mark going to come out? If I can actually find him on the spectator cams,
Behind
there he is.
Jamie.
He's yeah, there's a little bit of traffic from Mark. Well, I say a little bit of traffic. He's got a lot of clear air before the next bit of traffic. He's come out ahead of Kian, which is crucial for him. And actually, yeah, he's got a lot of clear air. Where is Fed though? Fed again has lots of clear air, but he's behind Kian. He is going to have to overtake the Sauber, although he can see Mark now.
Yeah, he gained a lot of time.
Yeah, the undercut is very effective around here. So I wonder if we're going to see Higuain respond at all. We now have Renegade running around in second place. He's been promoted to after a number of other guys have pitted. I wonder when we're going to see Renegade pit, because obviously he started on that set of soft tyres, then went for the super softs. Are we going to see him potentially take a set of mediums to the end? Is that what we're looking at? I'm not entirely sure.
By the way, now Higuain has to be careful because he only had 6 seconds on Mark, so
yes,
you have to pit or he will lose the position.
That is a fair point. He does not want to come out behind Kian and Mark. And Mark is absolutely flying at this stage. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of fastest laps from the F1 racing driver. I mean, on this fresh set of soft tyres in the clear air, he should be absolutely flying. I mean, the Ferrari Higuain obviously have clear air as well, but his tyres are much, much older. He's going to be bleeding time every single corner that he stays out. So you would imagine that he's got to pit sooner or later.
To go on with his tyres and try to do only one stop from here to the end.
Yeah, that would make sense considering he stayed out so long. Unless we see him pit in the next couple of laps, then we will probably expect him to be going to the end on one more stop, although he could copy his teammate and Mark's strategy and literally just cover them off, or I don't know, maybe we'll see him do something a little more audacious and go to the end.
But from now you can just pick a set of medium and go to the end. So
the medium tyres around here are very slow though, so there's potential that, particularly with that undercut that the other guys have got, they could potentially be closing in on him. I mean, where is well, I think actually he does have to go to the end on one more stop, otherwise Jamie is going to be all over him really, because the gap between them is only 26 seconds. So if Higuain makes 2 stops, because we know Jamie's only doing 1 more before the end of the race, and yeah, it could be very detrimental for Higuain to make 2 stops before the end of this race, as we saw Mark setting the fastest lap. I said to look out for fastest lap from the Red Bull driver, and that's exactly what we got. I mean, if we compare that lap from Mark, what was that lap from Mark?
He gained 2 seconds this lap.
So if he stays out a couple more laps, he's going to be all over the back of that Ferrari who's been leading for the vast majority of this race. That could be a little spanner in the works for the F1 Italian driver. I mean, they're still looking very good to extend their championship lead tonight. I mean, as always, has been very impressive from the F1 Italian representatives, particularly Higuain, who's been out in front, Sebastian Vetteling this race for the majority of it, in a Ferrari, doing exactly what the Ferrari was doing on Sunday. But as you look through the rest of the field, Stig is still out on this set of mediums. He's been going for years on that set of tyres. Shows how long those mediums really do last. And Jamie really is closing on the leader. So if Higuain stays out many more laps, he's going to be under threat. As I say that, Higuain pulls into the pits. Now, this is going to be absolutely crucial. What tyres does he go on to? And where is he going to filter out He's on to super soft. Wow, that's an aggressive strategy. He's going to be making 2 stops before the end of the race. Could that possibly hand the lead and, well, the net lead to Jamie and Stig? Because they're only going to be making 1 more stop before the end of the race. So Higuain has got a lot of overtaking to do, but he has come out just ahead of Jamie. So, okay, maybe we got a little bit too excited there. Higuain has only got to overtake Stig. Unfortunately for Jamie, he's come out quite a way behind, he's come out a couple of seconds ahead of him, but enough to be out of range of the Sauber. So unless Stig holds him up considerably, I think Higuain could, well, he's just going to breeze past, because Stig's mediums are absolutely dying at this stage. He's had them on for 20 odd laps, and a guy who we believe has been the quickest pretty much all race rocks up behind him on a fresh set of super softs. I mean, he's closed that gap in 1 sector, really. I don't think there's going to be much Stig can do here in the McLaren. And look at the traction Higuain has got. He's just driven past him on the exit of turn 10, and I don't really think there's going to be anything that this McLaren can do. He brakes early for turn 11, and yeah, Higuain is back up into the lead of this race on that set of super softs. He'll probably be taking 1 more stop and 1 more set of super softs to the end, and well, I can't see him having much opposition between then and now. And I think Stig is probably just going to drive away with this race now. Obviously, he does have 1 more stop to make, so that could possibly throw a spanner in the works for F1 Italian. But I highly doubt that. They've been looking imperious all evening, and I think Mark now is closing up to the back of Jamie very quickly. If we compare Jamie's lap times to Mark's, what was Jamie doing?
Jamie is closing on Stig.
Yeah.
Yep. I think Stig's tyres really have passed the best at this point. Last lap for Jamie was a 34.2. Mark was a 33.2, so a full second faster for the Red Bull. And Renegade sets the fastest lap off the Grand Prix. Where is Renegade? He's in P7 now, just behind Kian. He's on another set of super soft tyres, so he's gone soft, super soft. Oh, there's a bit of lag going on there with Kian and Renegade. And I think Kian is doing a good job of keeping this Toro Rosso behind him, actually. Helping out his teammate, you've got to say. Because Renegade, oh, that's a big dive from the Toro Rosso into turn 8. It's got a little bit hairy. Kian trying to hang it around the outside. And I think he's done a good enough job of that. As they're going to be side by side into turn 10. And Kian quite sensibly backs out of that one. And Renegade up into 6th place. Trying to make the most of that set of super soft tyres. And we now have Mark really closing onto the back of Jamie. It's not going to be long before he's all over the back of that Sauber, but they are fighting for net position. Surely Jamie's got to try and fight him a little bit more than he fought the Ferrari, and before long they're both going to be on the back of this McLaren Honda. And for Jamie, it's going to be absolutely crucial to get within DRS range of that McLaren to try and help defend from the Red Bull. But for now, he is not going to have DRS from in front, and he's going to look behind him to try and defend from F1 Racing Mark, who's going to have the DRS, he's going to have the slipstream, he's going to have the length of this back straight. Jamie pulls to the inside, F1 Racing Mark goes to the outside, Jamie's still on the inside into turn 1, there's a contact, oh, there's big contact, they're almost half round, both of them throw a hand up in anger, and I think Mark has managed to barge his way through. Jamie's not going to give it up without a fight though, as Mark is going slightly defensive into turn, oh, there's a lot of weaving going on that straight. There's a big contact between the two of them, and it looks like Mark has just about managed to come on top of that very feisty duel between the two of them. And Mark will lead Jamie up into P3, but it's not over yet. They both have Stig in front of them, and if Stig gets in the way a little bit of Jamie behind, that could cause him a few issues and possibly put Jamie and Mark back together again, which would be quite interesting to see, considering how exciting that little passage was between them just there. And Jamie crucially has managed to stay in DRS range of Mark. If he can stay in DRS of that Red Bull, I mean, the Red Bull, unfortunately for Jamie, is clearly quicker. I mean, he's been lapping a good lot quicker so far in this race. If Jamie can stay in DRS, that could be crucial for his race. He can kind of be pulled along by the F1 Racing driver, and I think he is still within DRS, so that could help him a lot. And if Stig and Mark start battling at all, that could really play into Jamie's hands, as now I believe all of these guys have 1 more stop to make before the end of the race. and Jamie has managed to stay within DRS. Mark has DRS from the McLaren in front as well, so these guys pulling each other along, and I don't think there's going to be much Stig can do here. As I said, those mediums have been going an awful long time, and the softs at this stage are just going to be so much quicker. So again, I mean, we saw Mark very aggressive with Jamie. Is he going to be able to do the same with Stig? Is Stig going to fight him as much? Because we don't really know what strategy Stig's on. We know he's on much older tyres. Is he going to have the grip to fight the Red Bull? Is he going to be able to fight the Red Bull even if he wants to? You can see how much he's closed just through turns 5 and 6. F1 Racing Mark is all over the back of this McLaren Honda now. And Jamie not far behind as well. We could be seeing a three-way scrap for second place. Oh, that's a big dive from Mark. He's gone way too deep into the turn 10 hairpin. Is this going to allow Jamie through? It is. Jamie 995 gets back up into third place. A massive mistake from F1 Racing Mark. That was a way, I don't know whether he just missed his braking zone or tried to go for a move. He really overestimated his braking ability there, and Jamie is back up into P3. And is he going to be able to clear Stig quickly? It's going to be crucial for him to get past Stig and put a buffer of one car between himself and Mark, because it means that it's going to slow Mark down a little bit more just before the end of this race. He needs to get past his McLaren very quickly, but that was a big mistake from the Red Bull. I mean, I don't know whether he was just trying to be mad aggressive or whether he unintentionally did that, but now Mark is going to be, are we going to be seeing 3 wide into turn 1? Jamie closing on Stig, Mark closing on Jamie and Stig. Stig goes defensive, Jamie goes to the inside. It's 3 wide into turn 1. Jamie on the inside of both cars. He's made a move on Stig, and there's contact between Stig and Mark, and Stig is round and Mark has managed to get past him, and Jamie maintains second, and Mark has got up into third, and Stig has dropped well down the order because of that. Has cost him a lot of time, and I think F1 Italian Fed is going to be joining this party before long. He's absolutely flying, and if these two continue to battle, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that Ferrari close right up to the back of these guys as they are going hammer and tongs after each other at this stage of the race. Wow, 3 wide into turn 1. That was quite a sight to witness. Are we going to see Mark go for a lunge into turn 8? Turn 8? Is it turn 8 or turn 10? I can't remember which hairpin it is now. Has Mark learned his lesson? It appears he has. He is going to have DRS though. He is going to have the slipstream again. And is Jamie going to move to the inside to defend? He is. Mark pulling to the outside for turn 11. Round the outside. Is he going to be able to pull that one off? Jamie defending aggressively and nicely, placing his car beautifully on the exit of the corner. And Mark cannot find a way through. Are we going to see a banzai into the penultimate corner? No, we are not. And Jamie is somehow managing to keep this Red Bull behind him, but he is going to have the slipstream into the final corner. Is he going to look down the inside? No, he's not. He's going to be sensible, get the DRS, and I think there's not going to be a lot Jamie can do here, in all honesty. He's got a nice exit, but I think the DRS is just a little bit too strong. Is he going to try and defend it though? I'm sure he will. Moving to the inside, not quite. Is he going to squeeze Mark at all? I don't think there's going to be anything Jamie can do as Mark breezes past into turn 1, and unfortunately for Jamie, there was not a lot he could do there. But is he going to be able to make a move into turn 4? Again, he isn't quite close enough. He's got to try as much as possible to stay within DRS of this Red Bull, otherwise that could be race over in the fight for second place. And you can see how much Mark gained just in that one corner there. I think he is on fresher tyres.
Some issues with the streaming. We'll be online. Yeah, we're doing only we'll be online soon. Yep.
Okay.
We can continue tell the race, and when the video will be ready again, we'll inform you. Now Jamie is trying to overtake Mark. They're still net battling for the position.
Yep, Jamie is still within DRS. He has a big slide. Yeah, unfortunately, there seem to have been some issues with the picture, but it's all being sorted. It's all being worked on. As Jamie now into the final corner, he's still within DRS of Mark, and that is absolutely crucial for his race. It means that he is able to stay with the Red Bull and possibly challenge for second place. He's not close enough to make a move though, but he is close enough to close right up to the back of that Red Bull and possibly make a move on the next lap as he takes it very nicely into turn 1. Yeah, apologies to everyone for the issues we are having with the pictures. We'll be back online very shortly. There is no on track overtaking action being missed at this stage. There is only following Mark closely still for P2, and Jamie's still within DRS, but as I said, not close enough to make a move. As running through the rest of the field, is anything else going on? Oh, Stig's got a puncture. Stig has a puncture. The McLaren Honda driver is really struggling. As I said, he's been on those mediums for a long time, and they've finally given up the ghost. As my voice is now really starting to go. As we now have pictures back. They are back. And Jamie's DRS still on F1 Racing Mark. The only thing he missed was the McLaren getting a puncture. So Stig is going to drop well down the order after we saw him so high up so early on. He's provided us with plenty of entertainment this race, but unfortunately for him, it's not ended very nicely for him, as we now have a back marker car of B-Nanaman. I've absolutely butchered his name, never mind. But he's just come out the pit, so he'll be very fast at this stage. But obviously he's not actually fighting these guys for track position, and Jamie is just hanging on to the Red Bull in front of him. He must have been in the upper reaches of DRS range, and I think by the next lap that could be it for Jamie fighting Mark, which is a shame because it threw up so many fireworks the last time we saw him go wheel to wheel. And next up is Fed, probably closing in on Jamie. That timing doesn't seem entirely right, but they're not far away from, well, they're not that far away from each other, and I believe Fed is going very fast at this stage, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him close up to Jamie before long. And although in fairness to Jamie, he is still sticking with this Red Bull in front of him, and I think he is still within DRS, just about. Yeah, he's on older tyres as well. It should be pointed out, Jamie is on much older tyres than this Red Bull, and he's managing to stick within the DRS, and that's crucial. It's absolutely imperative for Jamie's race that he stays within the DRS of F1 Racing Mark. Otherwise, I fear the Red Bull, with his fresher tyres, with his extra grip that he's got, will just drive away. And I think Jamie is still, for another lap, managed to stay within DRS. As let's go and have a look through the rest of the field. Fed running around in clear air in fourth place for F1 Italian. Renegade in P5 again has clear air. Adeo's up into P6 on those mediums. Whether they'll go to the end or not is another question, but he is still running in this Grand Prix. And then Timid Afir in 7th place in the Force India, with Kian running around in 9th still. And then F1 Simu. The F1 Simu cars have managed to work their way back up into the top 10 after looking fairly desperate for them at one stage. With both cars running outside the points, they have recovered to both cars now running well within inside the points, with Adeo in 6th and Bino in 10th. So Jamie has got his work, really has got his work cut out trying to stay with this Red Bull. But what a result that would be for Jamie to get up into 2nd place. Obviously F1 Racing Mark flying the flag for F1 Racing after his teammate so dramatically exited the race after being backwards before we even got to turn 1. So again, it's pretty impressive from the Red Bull. We saw him losing a little bit of ground to the leaders, but he's managed to work his way up into 2nd place, and he's beating his rival from earlier on in the Grand Prix, F1 Italian Fed. But Jamie is still within the DRS of F1 Racing Mark. He's doing it well. You got to say it's an incredible job for him to stay within the DRS of a guy who's on much fresher tyres. Let's check, when did Mark pit and when did Jamie pit? And does Mark have a penalty? He's got a couple of warnings. So Mark pitted lap 28 and Jamie pitted, let's have a look, Jamie pitted, I don't know what I'm looking for.
I think lap 23.
24, 23 or 4, okay. So he has considerably older tyres than the Red Bull. That's a couple of laps, that's 4 or 5 laps I think from what I remember. So again, it's only the DRS that is really keeping him in this one. And should we have a look at some penalties? Does Higuain have anything? Higuain managing to not have a single warning all race. It appears F1 Racing Mark has 2 warnings from the opening 2 laps, but no penalty. Jamie, as unsurprisingly, Only one warning, no penalty. Fed had that stop go earlier on, but no corner cutting penalty, and I think that's all that we need to check as we're running through the order. But so Fed is, what's the gap between him and Jamie, is just over 2 seconds. As his back marker is still staying with them, as I think Mark made a mistake there. Jamie is no longer within DRS range, but he might be with that mistake that the Red Bull just made on the exit of turn 10. I mean, what is that gap looking like now? Oh, that's right on the edge. It's going to be touch and go, whether it's going to be DRS for Jamie. He's going to have to nail this penultimate corner. And he's done that nicely. But is it going to be enough to stay with the driver in front? I don't think it's quite going to be enough. The fight for PE2 might be over now. Oh no, he's still got DRS. Just about. What is the gap there? That is touch and go as to whether he actually does have DRS, but he's managed to maintain that gap. And he's slowly being pulled along, and he's just got to wait until they make their final pit stops and they have equal tyres again for him to just throw caution to the wind and absolutely attack F1 Racing Mark. Potentially go for the undercut as well. But particularly with the older tyres, that might be something that would work for him very nicely. As we're now on to lap 41 of 57. 17 laps to go. And plenty of action still to look forward to with this battle for P2. Seemingly never ending, as Mark just cannot quite shake off the Sauber of Jamie, who's doing a stellar job representing AOR and F1 Racing Mark. He's got a lot of pace clearly, but he just hasn't quite been able to challenge Higuain. Again, nobody's really been able to challenge Higuain. He's just been in a class of his own, and he's nailed the strategy as well more than anything else. He pitted after everyone else in the first stint and then after everyone else in the second stint as well. So he's on the freshest tyres, the best tyres of everyone, and that's just allowed him to drive away from the rest of the field. And I wonder if we're going to be seeing a pit stop from Jamie sooner or later. He needs to pit now, really, or around now, if he wants to possibly undercut the car in front. I mean, it might not have been
now, Jamie must use a set of soup stop, because he did 2 sets of stops, so now it's mandatory.
Yep, so Jamie must either go onto a set of super soft or a set of mediums, and you would imagine he would be going onto a set of super softs at the end of this race. I'm not sure how long the super softs will go. In the first stint they went roughly 10 laps.
I think maybe 15, not more.
So around 15 laps we're imagining for a fresh set of super softs when the cars are on low fuel, when the track is fully rubbered in.
Yep. Maybe some less, yep.
So we're expecting to see pit stops within the next 2 or 3 laps, I would say. And I think Jamie really does have to go for an undercut, otherwise he's not. Well, he has to get back within DRS of the Red Bull somehow, and I think the only way he's going to do that is by undercutting him. As we have a battle going for P13, let's go have a look at that.
I think maybe Higuain with clean air can just do some more laps with his tire, just to be sure. And the following drivers as to pit as soon as they can to try to overtake the others. Yep.
Stig and Manuel Juve on battle.
Yep, as we now have a battle between Stig and Manuel Juve. We saw Stig have that puncture early on. Are we going to see him go for a lunge into turn 1? Oh, that's very aggressive. Late on the brakes, down the inside into turn 1. These guys aren't fighting for any points. It is just pride at this stage, and Stig couldn't quite make that one stick. We saw it get quite ugly when Stig last tried to go down the inside into turn 1 with F1 Simo Adeo, and he's going to go for a lunge into turn 4. He is, but it's not enough. He's not late enough on the brakes to get past that Toro Rosso in front of him, who seems to be causing him quite a few issues as we look through the rest of the field for anything else going on.
Renegade, who was just behind Fed, has pitted with another set of super soft.
So he will be going to the end on this set, so that's perhaps a cue for Jamie and maybe Mark as well to pit now, because surely Renegade would imagine that the Supersofts can go to the end fairly comfortably. So you'd imagine Jamie's really got to just take his chances now, strap on a set of Supersofts and just absolutely go for it and try and undercut Mark. He's got to take a risk if he wants to beat the F1 racing driver in this Grand Prix, because he's not going to do it quite on pure pace due to the gap that F1 Racing Mark has pulled in this last stint after Jamie fell out of DRS range. But let's go back to Stig, because he was having that battle with Manuel Juve, and out of the final corner, Stig surely is just going to be able to breeze past this time as he goes almost sideways out of the final corner. Manuel on the grass on the exit of the final corner, and Stig's not really closing actually into turn 1, but again breezes past, and Toros is trying to come back in, but I don't believe there's any space there. He tries to get a cutback, but it's not quite going to work out, is it? No, it's not, and I think Manuel is probably just going to have to stick behind here unless he goes for an ultra aggressive lunge into turn 4, which
and now
we don't
Fed
see.
defeated on super soft tires.
So Fed as well going for super softs to the end, and surely Jamie's got to react sooner or later to that, otherwise Fed's going to undercut him and gain a huge amount of time, because we saw how effective the undercut was earlier on, and I think it could be just as effective at this stage of the race. So Jamie's really got to pit this lap, and you'd imagine Mark will do the same.
And Renegade overtook Fed. Now Renegade is in P4 and Fed in P5.
So both of those guys possibly looking to jump Mark and Jamie, if I can actually find where they are. Renegade, there we go. So Renegade is considerably ahead of Fed there, and although he does have 1 lap older tyres, I can't imagine that's going to make too much of a difference until we get right to the end of the race. So what is the gap? It's going to be touch and go as to whether Renegade actually comes out ahead of Jamie. It's possible. So I really think Jamie and Mark as well probably have to pit this lap to guard against the undercut from the guys behind, otherwise they're going to lose a whole heap of positions. So let's stay on board with Mark here as he comes around the final corner, possibly for the final time on this set of tyres. Is he going to box this lap? So Higuain, the leader of the race, boxes from that set of super soft tyres. Is it going to be a cue for Mark to pit? No, Mark stays out. Is Jamie going to pit? Yes, he is. Jamie is into the box this lap. Is he going to get drive through? No, he just about slows that down. That was very close to speeding in the pits, but Higuain is going to leave with, I believe, clear air in front of him. So F1 Racing Mark inherits the lead of the race, but Higuain is the de facto leader with Jamie fitting that set of super soft tyres. Where is he going to come out in relation to, I can't remember his name. It's F1
Renegade.
Italian Fed. Renegade, there he is. He's just set the fastest lap of the race. Is Renegade going to jump Jamie? Yes, he is.
Yep.
Is Jamie going to come out ahead of the Ferrari? It's crucial that he does into turn 1. And Fed's gone very, very deep. Is Jamie going to be able to get the move done? Yes, he is. Jamie up into P4 on a fresh set of super soft tyres. Now he's got to try and concentrate on chasing down Renegade in front of him, with Higuain well off in the, well, what will be the lead of the race. But it's going to be crucial now. Can Jamie undercut Mark? He's got clear air in front of him. He's only got Renegade a couple of seconds down the road, so he is going to be able to push like mad on this lap. He can't battle with the Ferrari behind him, and there is a big chance that he could potentially jump F1 Racing Mark, and what a result that would be. And we are going to be in for a titanic battle for P2 here. Unfortunately for the spectators, Higuain has disappeared off into the lead and will surely be taking home this victory unless anything dramatic happens. But is the big thing we're waiting on here, is Mark going to pit, and is Jamie going to jump him? Mark is coming into the pits, and where is Jamie going to be in relation to him? Where is Fed going to be? I mean, there is a big possibility that Mark could come out behind all 3 of these cars, come out behind Renegade, behind Jamie, and behind Fed as well. But Renegade's tyres are going to be crying come the end of the Grand Prix. He's going to be on those super softs for a very long time. Out of the final corner for Jamie, where is Mark going to be? He is about to exit the pits now. Is Jamie going to be able to jump him? I don't think he is. It's going to be all about Renegade coming into turn 1. Mark's on the inside. Renegade's going to have the speed. He's going to have the warm tyres. He's going to go around the outside into turn 1. Renegade takes second place from F1 Racing Mark, but Mark is going to have the slipstream into turn 4. He's pulling to the outside of the Toro Rosso down into turn 4. He's late on the brakes, but Renegade's later. He goes deep into the corner. Mark gets the cutback and takes P2 back from Renegade, and this could, I think, mean that Mark will just drive away from the guys behind him and will be left with a scrap for P3. But that was a very audacious move from Renegade. First of all, to get around the outside at turn 1, but then, unfortunately for him, he just went a little bit too deep into turn 4. Again, overestimated his braking ability and couldn't quite get it slowed down in time, and Mark was able to just drive away. But is Renegade going to be able to stay within the DRS of Mark and possibly get towed along like we saw Jamie do earlier on? Is Renegade going to be able to get towed along by the F1 racing driver? We definitely help him out quite a lot in this race, because Mark seems to have some very strong pace, but Jamie is really closing on Renegade now, and I think if Renegade can stay within DRS of Mark...
there are 3 seconds for Renegade of penalty.
3 second time penalty
now.
for Renegade. Or 6 seconds.
6 seconds.
Yeah.
As I've just heard in my ear.
This is a problem for him.
Penalties. Oh, there's a lot of penalties for Renegade actually. That's going to really harm him. So once penalties are applied, Jamie's in a net 3rd place. So, well, I wonder if Renegade is going to fight Mark, as he's so late on the brakes into turn 1, locking up both front tyres, almost driving into the back of the F1 racing driver. But impressively, he has managed to stay within the DRS despite being on the oldest tyres of everyone in this group, as he's managed to stay very impressively actually with the Red Bull, and it looks like we are going to get this 3-way scrap for 2nd place. So let's run you through the order then as we're coming into the final 10 laps of this Grand Prix. It is Higuain who leads the race for F1 Italian. He's been the quickest, he's been in clear air for most of this race, and then Mark running around in 2nd place. He's also shown some very strong pace, but he's still embroiled in this scrap for 2nd place, with Renegade behind him, who does actually have 6 seconds worth of penalties, with Jamie running in 4th and F1 Italian Fed in 5th. Kian's up into 6th, but he's got F1 Simu Adeo right behind him as we come out of turn 10. I don't know whether Kian is making another stop before the end of the race, but Adeo is going to have the slipstream, he's going to have the DRS. Is he going to look down the inside into turn 11? He is. The Sauber and the Renault going side by side. Kian on the outside, and he's managed to hang around the outside very easily of the F1 Simu. Through turn 11, there's lots of lag going on there, and Kian maintains the position. But let's have a look back at this scrap for 2nd place. Renegade is still within DRS of Mark, and that is really stopping Jamie from getting much closer than just about within DRS range. All 3, well, the 2 cars behind Mark have DRS. Unfortunately for Fed, he's just out of DRS range, as we now have Adeo looking out the back of Kian. He's got DRS, he's got slipstream. Is Kian going to defend hard? Adeo's on the super softs compared to Kian's soft. Looking down into turn 1, there's a lot of lag going on there with the Sauber, and Adeo gets it stopped into turn 1. Is Kian going to be able to come back through turns 2 and 3 and get a run into turn 4? Unfortunately not for the Sauber driver, but his teammate is running up in P4, looking on for a very strong result, building on RBS's 2nd place for AOR in Baku. And F1 Racing Mark is about 11.5 seconds behind the leader, so that just shows Higuain's dominance in this race, as Renegade is now out of DRS of Mark, and Jamie's out of DRS of Renegade as well. Or, well, you've got to remember those Renegade's penalties. You've got to remember Renegade's penalties, but unfortunately
6 seconds for Renegade.
Yep, Renegade 6 seconds worth of penalties are going to drop him well down the order. Well, I say well down the order. It's going to drop him behind Fed, and it's going to drop him behind Jamie as well. So he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to build a 6-second gap to those guys. But it appears for now that he's out of the DRS range of the Sauber. He's also out of DRS of the Red Bull in front of him though, which is going to be detrimental to his own race. He's got a lot of work to do if he wants to actually finish on the podium in this race. It looks like, currently as it stands, we're going to be seeing Higuain cross the line first, then Mark in 2nd. Renegade will be 3rd, but with his penalties is going to end up likely 4th or maybe even 5th, depending on the gap to Fed come the end of the race. Still, we've got a fair few laps of racing to go. It's not over till it's over. Let's run you through the top 10 then. So we have Stig running around in 10th after we sort of have that puncture earlier on in the race. We have Adilo's gang in 9th, Timir Defir in 8th, with K&G running around in 7th, Adeo up in 6th after being well outside the points at 1 point in 12th, with Fed up in 5th after that 5-second stop go cost him quite severely earlier on in the race. Jamie 995 up in 4th place, Renegade up in 3rd, and then F1 Racing Mark currently in 2nd place, with Higuain well out in the lead of this race by 10 seconds from F1 Racing Mark. Unfortunately for Mark, However hard he pushes in this final stint, I can't see Higuain losing a 10-second lead anytime soon. Unfortunately for him, I think that could be, well, he's just got to settle for second place. There's not much else he can do, and apart from hope that Higuain has a huge amount of penalties, which isn't going to happen, because Higuain, I don't think, has a single warning. Let's have a look. Yep. Oh yeah, I say that. He's got one warning on the last lap, but still no penalties for the Ferrari driver. And these cars are getting a little bit more spaced out now, so there's no actual on-track overtaking going on. After 50 laps of racing, the field has become a lot more spread out, with several guys, well, Bino running out to the top 10 now after he hasn't quite been able to recover from that drive-through early on. He's not going to be picking up any points today unless something drastic happens in front of him. Let's go on board with the leader then. Looking very nice at this stage. He's had very little to challenge him really through this Grand Prix. He's looked like he has been the quickest, like he is the deserving winner, is what we've seen so far really from him. I mean, F1 Racing Mark is managing to maintain the gap most laps and appears to be taking a tenth or two out of the Ferrari driver, but is not going to be anywhere near enough if he wants to win this race. And then Renegade, he's really fallen off the back of that Red Bull, but unfortunately for him, his penalties are going to drop him a good few positions. So wherever he does finish, you've got to remember he's going to be 6 seconds further back. So, well, I say that, it's not a given that Jamie finishes within 6 seconds as he cuts the corner a little bit. That looked like it could potentially be another warning for the Welshman. Let's have a look. No. So Jamie is looking on course for a podium, which would be fairly impressive, but the big story is F1 Italian are looking on course to take their second victory out of 2 races in this Formula Euro Championship, which just really shows their dominance so far. Prost in Baku looked extremely fast, and Higuain has taken up the mantle here in Bahrain. He hasn't had to do much overtaking. I think the overtake he pulled on Jamie was possibly the only overtake he's done all race, and that wasn't actually for net race position. And Mark really has got the bit between his teeth, because he has closed that gap to Higuain to under 10 seconds, but unfortunately for him, as I said earlier, it's just not going to be enough to take the victory this time around. And what is the gap between Jamie and Renegade? Yeah, Jamie's well within 6 seconds. So unfortunately for Renegade, it appears he's going to be dropping a couple of positions. Let's try and see if anything else is going on. So after 51 laps of racing, the field has become very, very spread out. We've had a lot of racing, a couple of incidents, nothing. The one major incident which we saw at the start is, well, quite spectacular. I've never quite seen a car backwards between the grid rows before we even get the lights out, which was, yeah, quite a sight. And obviously that had quite a drastic effect on the race, because F1 Racing Danny, I believe it was out of the race before we even got going. It's not very often that something like that happens, but his teammate doing a stellar job, up in second place, taking home the points for F1 Racing. Again, they had a strong enough showing in Baku, and they're showing very nicely here in Bahrain. And the gap between Jamie and Renegade has pretty much stayed the same. You've got to say, it's not really changed much. And Fed, although he seems to be very fast, doesn't seem to quite have enough pace on older tyres to keep up with the guys in front. As Adeo is rolling around in a fairly lonely P6. Everyone is looking fairly lonely at this stage of the race. Everyone pretty spread out across the track. You can see the gap that's been built between Adeo and Kian. That is huge. I mean, Kian has lost almost 10 seconds in about 3 laps, which is just shows how fast the F1 Simu driver is on that fresh set of super softs. And unfortunately for Kian, he's got a big gap to 8th place. We have a lot of smoke there, and I think the big battle we could be seeing in the final laps of this race is for 8th place between Adilo's gang on the super soft and Timid Defir on the mediums in the Force India. That is likely going to be the only on-track battle we're seeing. As again, Stick has a very lonely P10 even. After looking so good for vast portions of this race, it hasn't quite come together for him after he pushed those mediums just that little bit too long, and that's really cost him dear at this stage of the race. And Adilo's gang is definitely closing on the Force India in front of him. He's another car that we saw further up the field early on, but it hasn't quite worked out for him in this race. He's still going to come home with a couple of points, but it's not quite going to be enough to pick up a top 5 or a top 6 finish. So, Higuain leads the Grand Prix from F1 Racing Mark in 2nd place with Renegade in 3rd, but you've got to remember, as I said earlier, his 6 seconds worth of corner cutting penalties are going to drop him quite a way down the order, with Jamie 995 running around in P4. It should be noted that none of the other top drivers have penalties. It is only Renegade who has his corner cutting penalties, and that looks like it is going to really cost him dear at the end of this race. And then we have F1 Italian Fed running around in 5th place, a long way ahead of the Renault of F1 Simu Adeo. And then Kian, as I mentioned earlier, has lost a lot of time to Adeo and is rolling around on a lonely P7. Timmy Defir in 8th place with Adilo's gang in 9th, who has actually got DRS now at this stage, so we could be seeing Adilo's gang making a move before long on the Force India in front of him. He's clearly got much more grip, and with the DRS and the slipstream, he's going to have far superior straight line speed as well. So you'd be expecting Adilo's gang to be making a move before long. And the Force India getting a little bit out of shape on the exit of the penultimate corner will cost him a little bit of time, and possibly mean that Adilo's gang is potentially close enough to go for a move into turn 1. Timur Defir has run slightly wide on the exit of the final corner. This could be enough for Adilo's gang with the DRS, with the slipstream closing on the Force India. Which way is he going to go? Pulls to the outside, the Force India going very defensive. Adilo's gang round the outside, and it looks like he's not quite got that done, as the Force India hangs it very nicely round the outside of turns 2 and 3, and then goes very defensive into turn 4, but there's no need for him to do that. He's got a big advantage coming into the braking zone. Oh, he's gone very wide though. That could allow the Mercedes to have a look into turns 5 and 6. No, not quite. So Adilo's gang is still in P9. Are we going to see a lunge though? We've seen it a couple of times. He's going to look around the outside at turn 8. There's not a big enough gap for him to go for there. And Timmy Defir is going to, just hold his line into turn 8. And Adilo's gang, is he going to be able to make that move into turn 11? He's got the DRS once again. He's got the slipstream once again. He's closing, but not closing that much. So he's going to sit behind in the braking zone as he almost runs into the back of the Force India. That was very close between the two of them. Let's just have a quick check on the rest of the field. Jamie has lost a considerable amount of time to Renegade. I mean, that gap could be almost 6 seconds by the time we get to the end of the race. But let's go back to Adilo's gang and this Force India driver.
By the way, in the field has 3 seconds of penalty.
Right. So yeah, that is gonna cost him. Well, it's only going to cost him 1 position, I believe, because of how spread out the field is. But it means that this battle, the one battle that we're seeing on track at the moment, is not going to be really for net track position, as that nearly goes all wrong for Adilo's gang on the exit. And Kian again has lost even more time to Adeo, who is absolutely flying. And Fed's really fallen off the back of Jamie, actually. Looking at that, he's well off the Sauber driver. But for Jamie, it's now all about trying to stay within 6 seconds of the car in front, which I think he's doing fairly well. I mean, the gap between Jamie and the leader is 15.8. What is it for Renegade? It's 11.5. So yeah, it's comfortable for Jamie. He's well within the 6 seconds and should be able to comfortably, well, I say comfortably,
it's wrong because Fed, that's behind him, is also at 15 seconds. So
Oh, wow.
there's something wrong here. And Jamie, it's near Renegade. There's not 4 seconds between them.
Oh,
I
okay.
think. The one that is risking the position is Fed, because Renegade has now 4 seconds and a half. So in 2 laps, Fed has to manage the gap.
Okay. So then, starting almost the final lap of the race, Higuain coming around the final corner for the penultimate time. As I said, nobody's really looked like challenging him since he took pole position with a 29.6, which is an unbelievable lap time. And that was enough for him to take pole position. And then he avoided the mess at turn 1. He avoided the battling earlier on. And that's meant that he's able to just drive away from everyone else. His strategy was perfect. His driving has been pretty much perfect. He hasn't really been too many issues. It's variously for him. And he's taken full advantage of every opportunity that he's had tonight. F1 Racing Market closed that gap considerably. I mean, that was at one point almost 15 seconds. That gap has closed to 7.5 seconds. So that shows possibly what could have been for Mark tonight. He clearly has a lot of pace. Unfortunately, for the victory, it didn't quite come together for him, but he can't be displeased with second place considering the quality of this field. Then Renegade in third. I believe Renegade's in third. With those penalties, that's going to drop him a little way down the order and probably promote Jamie up into third place if all the timings are correct. And then we have F1 Italian Fed, who's a little way back as he locks up into turn 8. I don't think that's going to be enough. Well, I don't think the gap between Renegade and Fed is enough. So I think Renegade is going to be safe in that one. So, as I say that, Mark was absolutely flying. He's closed the gap to under 7 seconds now. The Red Bull driver has been giving it everything in this final stint. But as I said, unfortunately for him, it hasn't quite come together for him to win this race. But coming around the final corner after 57 laps of racing, Higuain is absolutely delighted with this one up to the line. Fit Higuain takes the win for F1 Italian in the second round of the Formula Europe Championship. A dominant drive from the Ferrari man, coming home ahead of F1 Racing Mark, who finishes a strong and impressive second place. The sole F1 Racing driver left in this race. Then we have Renegade crossing the line in P3, but it's demoted to P4 as P5 even, as Jamie 995 takes the final spot on the podium. A very solid drive from the Sauber man. And then I believe that was Fed coming home in P4 with Renegade
P4,
in P5. Then Adeo in P6. And Kian is coming around the final corner up the line to take P7. Again, he can't be displeased with that after being well down the order earlier on in this in the race. I'm sure he'll be happy to take home some points for AOR. It's worth noting that he actually runs this Formula Europe thing for AOR. He's the one that gets all the drivers interested, deals with the lineup for every race. But unfortunately for Adilo's gang, he didn't come home in P9 behind the Force India, although with the penalties, Adilo's gang is going to move up into 8th place, and the Force India of Timmy Defir down into 9th. And then Stig is going to come up to the line to take the final point, finishing in 10th place. It could have been so much more for the McLaren drivers. We have Bino finishing just behind him outside the points. And then the final man to finish, Manuel Juve. We saw him having a battle with Stig early on. Unfortunately, it hasn't come together for him. He's going to come around the last man on the lead lap to finish in P12. But unfortunately for us, the excitement did kind of die away towards the end. But here we go, confirmation of the race results. It was Higuain who took the victory by 6.8 seconds from F1 Racing Mark, with Jamie 995 moving up into third place due to Renegade's penalties, as well as F1 Italian Fed finishing in fourth, with F1 Simu Rodeo finishing in 6th, Kian for AOR in 7th, Adilo's gang in 8th, Timid F8 in 9th, and F1 Simu Bino, due to penalties actually, picking up the final point. So what a race that was, what a result that was for F1 Italian, 1st and 4th, F1 Racing a strong result in 2nd place, and AOR as well, a strong result for them in 3rd and 7th. And F1 Simu coming home in 6th. They probably would have wanted a little more than that considering what could have been tonight, but again, some very strong, notable performances.
Yes, now we'll invite the first three drivers for some questions about the race. Okay, Mark is with us. I don't have Higuain. Okay, Jamie, perfect.
Yep, hello.
And we are waiting for Higuain. Okay, a moment. Okay. Okay, Wayne. Okay, Alec, we can start for 3 questions for the first race of the race. Drivers of the race.
Okay, so F1 Racing, Mark, congratulations on second place. What are your thoughts on that race, and do you think you could potentially have won it if things had gone slightly differently?
Billy will help us.
Chiede come è andata la gara e se pensi che senza qualche battaglia all'inizio avresti potuto lottare per la vittoria.
I don't...
Non lo sento io.
Yeah.
Mark?
Mark?
Eccomi ragazzi, scusate.
Ok.
Ho dovuto cambiare joystick che si era spento. Buonasera a tutti. Allora, sì, diciamo che non sono stato felice per le qualifiche, mi aspettavo almeno una seconda fila, sarebbe stata una gara forse un po' diversa, anche se inizialmente, purtroppo per sfortuna del mio compagno, è entrata la virtual e davanti a me ho visto un po' di scompiglio. Fortunatamente non so come, ne sono uscito illeso, praticamente ho rischiato di romperla 2 volte. Dopodiché mi sono messo in seconda posizione e purtroppo, non so se tutti lo sanno, la Red Bull ha un consumo esagerato nel primo stint, e infatti ho dovuto uscire la seconda posizione. Poi, grazie a un buon ritmo, sono riuscito a stabilirmi dietro a Nico, che aveva comunque, secondo me, un altro passo, ha gestito, secondo me, la gara. Diciamo che il massimo per oggi era questo, sono contento per questo podio e pensiamo alla prossima. Grandissimo Nico per la vittoria. Comunque non credo che senza i primi contatti avrei potuto lottare per la vittoria.
So he is pretty disappointed with the qualifying section because he was hoping to start on the second row, but at the start, thanks to the bad luck of his teammate, he succeeded in gaining some positions, and he had to pit early at the first stop due to the grade of the tires, and then he just managed to stay in second place because he knew that he wouldn't be able to catch Higuain in first place. He's happy with his race, and he congrats with Higuain.
Fair enough. It was a very, very strong result for F1 Racing. Do you know what happened with your teammate? Do you know how he ended up where he did at turn 1? Is there any explanation for that?
Chiede se sai cosa è successo al tuo compagno di squadra.
Sì, praticamente credo sia stato un lag, gli ha dato la bandiera verde in anticipo, e invece no, purtroppo era un lag, quindi problemi di connessione per lui e mi dispiace, è stato squalificato, peccato.
Yeah. At the start, he got the green light before the other drivers, so he lagged and made contact with the car in front of him.
Yeah, okay. So, moving on to Higuain, congratulations on the victory. That was a stunning drive. Did your strategy and race work out exactly as you planned?
Complimenti per la vittoria. Chiede se la strategia è andata come avevi previsto.
Sì, tutto bene, dai, è una bella gara, complimenti a Mark e Jamie, credo si pronunci così. Niente, peccato per Fed che ha avuto uno stop and go perché è andato lungo, non lo so. Comunque, gara normale fin dall'inizio. Eravamo su tutti un po' strategie differenti, quindi ero un po' indeciso su cosa fare alla fine, però la rossa finale ha pagato, quindi alla fine ho potuto anche gestire e niente. Seconda vittoria per Pitt e niente. La vittoria è dedicata a Nicola Lamanna, mio amico che è in un periodo un po' brutto.
Okay, so he enjoyed this race, but it's a little bit disappointed for the results of Fed because he got a stop and go that was unnecessary. He was keeping a constant pace for the race, but it was a little bit uncertain to the results because he saw that everybody was on a different strategy. But he continued on with his own, and this was the right choice to do. And he dedicates this victory to Nicola Lamanna, and he congrats with the other drivers on the podium.
Fair enough. That your race was extremely impressive but not particularly exciting, so I can't think of anything else to ask you. So we'll move on to Jamie. You finished in third place. How are you feeling after that race? Firstly, how was the hands after holding a pad for a 100% race?
Oh, I'm absolutely aching all over. Don't want to do that ever again. But totally worth it in the end. Get on the podium.
There was a virtual safety car at one point when you could have pitted. What went through your mind then, and why did you end up not pitting?
Because if I did pit, I think obviously I would have had to go on mediums, and judging from my pace in practice, I would have been too slow on them. So I thought I'd stick to the original strategy and stretch them out for a few more laps and go on to another set of softs instead. And no, honestly, I think it was the right thing to do for me personally.
So at no point did you consider going to the end with only one stop?
No, I would have been a sitting duck, and I don't think I would have finished as high as I did.
Fair enough. So I think that is going to be it for tonight. Should we round it off there?
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you again in the next race, the 18th of May. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.